One of the unanticipated blessings, real blessings of this channel, has been the people that I've been able to talk to as they have considered and are working through the decision to make a big employment change in their life. I've talked to a lot of people, ranging from a physical therapist who stopped being a physical therapist to be a general contractor, to young people who are trying to decide which trade to start into, I've talked to several people who are retiring from the military and have decided they just have to live a life as a carpenter or a contractor because they want to be able to control their own schedule and have a variety of activities and be able to look over their shoulder at the end of the day and see what they accomplished. I've talked to a lot of people who say that because of things that they've learned on YouTube, they're now, after 2 years in the trades, they're a foreman. Or a young superintendent who is being promoted to superintendent after coming from IT and then just a couple of years sort of working for a general contractor, and they identified him as being sharp and detail-oriented. They were going to make him a superintendent. And he wanted to talk about what in the world should I know before I start working for these people who I like and who like me in a way where I perceive that I could let them down. I talk to people who are exhausted at the 80-hour work weeks of being a small general contractor. I talk to people who want to know, how do I make enough money at this self-employment picture to be able to take any time with my family? And I talk to people who are so delighted that they've made the change and they love the freedom so much. And they love the people that they've met and that they work with, and they have clients that have become long-term, very positive. The whole gamut of people as they work through the decision to make a change in their employment, either from less freedom and more security to less security and more freedom, or back the other way. I've had all the freedom I can afford and I need something I can depend on. So we've touched on this and talked about things related to this a lot on the channel because it's been a big part of my life, and now in conversations with people like you, it continues to be a big part of my life. And maybe it's worth speaking to for a few minutes. Most of us come from a position of being employed by someone to do something. And the typical progression is we get better at what we do, and we become able to do more skills, partially because of what we learned in that job, and then in many cases we become dissatisfied. People don't quit jobs, they quit bosses, right? You run up against somebody who has the responsibility to instruct you in your job performance, and you don't get along with that person, and pretty soon you write off the whole job as being something you can't deal with, when really it was the person, maybe. So I talk to these people all the time, and what's becoming more and more clear to me is that I guess I lived kind of a charmed existence of making changes while I was employed by others, and then finally kind of being thrust out into the cold, which is what it's like to be out there by yourself, you and your family against the world in a self-employment picture. But in general, if you're in an employment picture, I know people who have gone to work for utilities, public utilities. I know school teachers. I know people who have taken jobs inside of government or inside of corporations and work a long time in one spot and come to the end of that with some real security and having enjoyed real stability. My brother, I'm so proud of my brother. He was a fighter pilot for the Marine Corps. He flew F-18s. He was as steady as sunrise and as talented and brilliant as a guy can be, and he got to the top of the food chain. And he's remained at the top of the food chain in flight, in different flying jobs. Always working for someone else. And he and I have talked about the difference in our lifestyle between the security of working for the man and the lack of freedom. Someone always is dictating your schedule. And my life of so long working for myself with barely enough, but all the time in the world to use what is barely enough. So maybe you're one of the millions of us who has the nagging thought in the back of your mind, I should be doing something different. I am dissatisfied. So maybe you're that. What should I do? What do you do with that thought? Well, the first thing that you should do is not jump out of the boat you're in. You never jump out of the boat in a storm. You wait until you have a spot to land before you jump, right? So don't bail. I mean, unless the situation is extreme. And ask yourself, is there more for me to learn here? How long will it take me to learn it? And how am I going to have a realistic expectation of what something different might look like? And then start looking for the people who can teach you that, who can talk to you about that. Spend as much time worrying about who to talk to about what it's like to not have security as you're spending worrying about how do I get more freedom in my life. Does that make sense? Stop obsessing about your problem and find some people who can teach you a more realistic perspective of what it's going to be like when you're out there in the cold, cruel world. Both the people who are having some success and the people who are experiencing some failure. Because your chances of one or the other are much heavier weighted towards some kind of failure and pain than some sort of rocket ship success. There's only one Elon Musk, okay? And we're not him. Now, I don't know how you find those people. And don't become tone deaf to the people who are lamenting. And, I'm kind of guilty of that. You hear a lot of cold water on this subject come out of this channel about be careful about being a general contractor, and it's all true. But you can't rely on others to crush your dreams. But you can rely on others to give you the benefit of their experience and then hope you have the wisdom that you need to apply that. So let's rewind the tape a little bit. There is a lot of good to be said about a steady job. The guys that work for Pacific Power and Light around here, I don't see much turnover there. I run into the linemen occasionally, and I know a couple guys that work there. I don't see much turnover in that job. And when I was a kid, my dad said, well, you go to work for the power company. I was talking about getting into a union apprenticeship as a carpenter. And as was typical, I didn't really listen to what he said. But a job with a utility is a great job. Those people have enough money to have a comfortable standard of living. They have vacation so they can escape and experience some freedom with their people. They have good health insurance. They have all of those things. If you're a young man right now, you could get a job with a power company if you try hard enough. And 40 years from now, you're going to look back and say, that was a pretty darn good ride. I'm glad I did it. Some of us are brimming with ambition. We're restless. We're itchy with ambition. And it's a priceless commodity that will exhaust itself. You're going to run out of that ambition, and so it is smart to capitalize on it while you've got it. It's the young ones among us that instigate so many powerful things, for good or for ill. And so let's talk about that ambition. Be a little leery, because the ambition can blind us. It is rocket fuel, and it can propel us at an extreme rate of speed in a direction that we can't recover from. So you need to, if you are that person who is compelled, I know I can do it, I know that nothing will stop me from doing it, that's great. But you better find an older, cooler head that you can talk to. Heck, I don't know, maybe it's your grandmother. But somebody in your circle of acquaintance, or that will come into your circle of acquaintance, is a voice that you should listen to when you do an ambition audit. We need to do ambition audits in the same way we audit how much fuel is in our fuel tank, how long has it been since I checked the oil, what's the status on, in the same way we audit anything else that we have to keep track of in our lives, because if you either run out, you're stuck alongside the road, or if you get too much, you're out of balance in that direction. We should do ambition audits once in a while and find someone who can help us understand, wait a minute, is this good idea just boundless optimism run amok? Or is this in fact a good idea? Now I don't know who that person is, I already said that, but maybe you do. And if you don't be seduced by your optimism into leaping into something until you find some good counsel. And the good counsel should come from someone who both will encourage you to do it and someone who will discourage you from doing it if you have both those extremes. And then, being aware of your ambition, make your decision and set that course. Now, part of the course that we can set is to find fulfillment in a side hustle. If you have a steady gig, and if you're drawn to entrepreneurial adventure, do it in a small way. Side hustles are a huge employer, right? They're a huge discretionary income producer. They're a huge source of education, both in terms of what's going to work and what's not going to work. So if you've got a powerful entrepreneurial itch, Develop it on the side. Now, if you're a married man, you talk to your bride about this. You're already doing that. And if you're not going to be married long. And if you're not, it's probably your problem, because we have to be able to consult with our better halves about the big changes and the big dynamics in our personality that are either going to cause extreme success or catastrophic failure. That's one of the reasons that the twain become one flesh, or a single organism, is so that together the two are about 4 times smarter than either of them individually. So you've always got to give it the wife test. So as I wrap this up, the thing that comes to my mind is maybe best illustrated in the story of my neighbor, Lem James, who has a business called Stone Age Table Tennis. And they make beautiful concrete ping pong tables. I mean, beautiful, highest quality, and they ship them all over the world. It's quite a niche, and he's doing great. And he was able to step into self-employment and be a success because of the personal education he got in his journey through employment up to that particular point. He worked for a company that produces quite a few precast concrete accessories that are in Forest Service, Romtech. He worked for Romtech, I think. They're a local company that's done good, making various accessories for public campgrounds, that sort of thing. He worked there for a while. He worked in a cabinet shop. And between these two areas and probably other places, we're going to find out in a video that we do over there with him again, he developed 3 things: an understanding of the materials, an understanding of really nice processes for creating the forms that he was going to need, and a contact list. The niche skills you're learning and the people you meet are your biggest assets if you actually are going to listen to your ambition and jump out of the ship into that cold, stormy sea of self-employment. You got to develop the contact list. You've got to keep some records of how long it took to do the things you did when you did them from other people, in order to get the data set, the things you're going to need in order to actually get a toehold in the world of self-employment. It's a scary world. It's fraught with risk. It's fraught with opportunities for real success, both personally and professionally. It's going to introduce you to people and practices and problems that you haven't imagined. And when you're in the middle of them, you're going to think, what was I thinking? And on the other side of it, you're going to be smarter. You're going to be perhaps successful. And you will have had a bigger impact on more people's lives, which maybe is the best reason to consider self-employment. If you're thinking about doing this, I want you to listen to this. We've got the Essential Craftsman Academy. You may be aware of that. There's a link in the notes that you could go to the website, check out the Academy. But in this conversation, the most valuable aspect of the Essential Craftsman Academy is twice a month we have Shop Talk, where dozens of guys show up in a Zoom meeting. I'm there, Nate's there, and we have had several young guys come on and say, hey, I've been in this, I'm doing this, I'm thinking about trying this, what do you guys think? Or how do I become a tree surgeon? Or what do you guys think about this job? And there are wise old heads there that are at that meeting just to share with each other what we're doing and what we've learned, and they'll give you an answer. And so even if you just join the Academy for a while, right? If you just show up in the Academy for a while until you think you've gotten your money's worth, consider that, because Shop Talk on Essential Craftsman Academy is where you're going to find more wisdom in one spot, ready to share without judgment, than anywhere else that I'm aware of. You might check that out. Thank you for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.